Yo,
Hi, what's up, buddy?
what are you doing?
Chilling. Like a villain. What's up?
Nothing, just hanging out, bored.
How'd your stream go yesterday?
It was all right.
Oh,
know.
you started talking to the Quantitos guy or whatever.
Yeah,
He's a character.
yeah. When he chills out, he's cool.
Yeah?
Yeah.
He's like if you combine like Tyler 1 and Zerka. That's fine. That's how I view him.
I mean, if you listen to the call, he was super calm.
Mm-hmm.
I was used to the yelling in this call, where he's like trolling and shit.
Yeah.
I didn't see the other side of him.
He's got potential. He's on his way to becoming a solid cast in the Orbiter crew, so we'll see
Oh
what
yeah,
happens.
I heard you guys are recruiting him.
Yeah, we're trying. We're seeing, We need to round out our cast, and we've got a brown Muslim who might be gay. That's like hitting so many demographic boxes for us here at
Oh
the DGG
Jesus, yeah,
LLC.
fuck yeah,
that,
you
like,
are.
Yeah, it's wild. So
I mean, with that setup, you might have to run for political office.
maybe, actually, maybe.
So let me ask you a question.
Ask away, my friend.
So yesterday you were saying, so obviously referring to the whole Hasan conversation, me, Hasan, and XQC. Yesterday you were saying you think Hasan is pretty smart. And-
Let me be very clear when I say these things. He can graduate college. He's got a degree, right? So he's got some baseline level of intelligence, and he's very adept at manipulating conversations or maneuvering through conversations, I should say. Those two things are what I mean quite clearly. Yeah.
Well, where I was going with this was this, right? In my head, there's one of two options going on, right? Sorry, one of two like scenarios happening, right?
Okay.
It's either that he's smart and he knows exactly what he's doing, or he's not and he's completely oblivious and he truly believes that he's, a full-fledged socialist.
I don't think he
So-
truly believes that. I don't think so.
You don't think so?
Nah.
I kind of think he does. I mean,
I mean,
I
like
think might be giving
he
a little
moves
too much
along.
credit.
He moves along with the times, right? He did the frat bro stuff when he was on the Young Turks. When he was with me, he was like a social democrat, and then now he's like a socialist, right? Like he moves along with the times. I think that's pretty.
Oh, okay. So then, so you're saying he is aware. So maybe I'm not giving enough.
Like
credit.
if he would have been like full on like socialist, like fucking like do you know Irish Vosh? Do you know who Vosh is?
I don't, but I've seen like videos of you debating him back in the day.
That's a guy who's been like pretty consistent for pretty long in terms of like where he's at politically. Like he probably believes the things that he's talking about. And then be clear too, it's not that people can't change. It could be that Hasan has changed. Usually you need to see like mechanisms for growth. And Hasan doesn't generally orient his life in a way that helps him grow. He's usually just maximizing for his career. But yeah.
Very, very interesting.
Why? What's interesting about that?
Well, I think a distinction's important, right? Whether you're aware of what you're doing or whether you're like oblivious and you just believe that you're operating in good faith, right? Like that distinction's important for me, at least.
The way that I live my life, the way that I function is I assume that most people operate on a relatively automatic foundation. They're not like super conscious about like the things that they do generally. We just kind of like go with like trends. So like for Hasan, I think Hasan kind of just like follows what's popular. Like he's never going to be the guy, Hasan will never be the guy standing and screaming against the crowd with everybody calling him wrong or dumb. He's going to be with where most people are. And then there's some people that sometimes there are people that always want to stand against the crowd, the contrarians. It just depends. But I don't think Hasan is like out here like carefully crafting like, I'm going to do this personality in this year and blah, 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 blah. It's generally just kind of like going along with like, oh, well, this is what's popular online now. These are the communities I inhabit. This is what I do, which is pretty common. I don't even think he's like exceptional. He's
It's
not
like
an
a fashion
exceptionally
trend.
yeah. I don't think he's like a horrible evil person. It's just like kind of a thing that he does. I would say it's a little irritating given he's seen as like a political thought leader or whatever. I think that's kind of annoying. But like I don't think he's like evil for that. I think it's pretty human.
I guess where I'm at, like overall regarding the conversation, like I genuinely am happy with where I'm at with the conversation. Like I listened to it again and I like where I'm at. My disconnect is this, and maybe you can fill that in for me. I think you did yesterday already, to be fair, but maybe you can use other words to help me understand. So I think my biggest disconnect that's causing me frustration within myself is let me think about this and how to word this, right? I guess for me it's this. When it comes to like truth, or when it comes to like logic, right? So for example, right, there are obvious hypocritical tendencies that that are pretty obvious that he has when it comes to being a socialist versus preaching about being one, or living in a socialist system or whatever the fuck, right? So it's like, if those are obvious and those are fact, right? The hypocrisies, right? Why does one need to carefully craft an argument to show that when it is? Does that make any sense? Am I making sense? Or
Well, because people are going to fight over it because you're attacking something that's like integral to somebody's identity. Of course, they're going to fight over how the exact definition of everything work, right?
Okay, but let me ask you this, okay? I'm going to try and think of an example, even though I just woke up, okay?
Can I can give you the answer, I think. You ready?
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. There are certain things that people want to collect points for being a part of. There are certain groups that you get points for being a part of. Really good example of this is Muslim or Christian, okay? It's very popular in the red pill community right now to identify as Christian or Muslim. But when you look at these people, they're obviously not. They don't have a favorite Bible verse. They wouldn't be able to tell you there's a Quran and a Torah. They don't even know. They don't know anything about their religion. So what's going on here, right? Similar to the socialists and Hasan, you look at these people like, okay, well, you're clearly not Islamic. You're clearly not a fucking Christian. Why do you say you are? Everyone should be that. Well, their goal is to defend their religious faith because they're collecting a lot of benefits for being part of the group. So they're gonna try to twist and angle themselves in a certain way so they can try to get the positives without necessarily taking on any of the negatives. So for Hasan, it's like this weird kind of like socialist meme shit, and you don't actually want to be like, you don't want to do like major wealth distribution or contributing to mutual aid or like doing a lot of socialist work, because that sucks. But there's huge pros on the internet and being seen as like a very virtuous, very kind, very holier than thou type person or whatever for being part of that group. So you do want to try to hold on to that identity as much as possible. Yeah.
So my disconnect is this, right? Here's my disconnect. Okay, so everything you just said right there about the things that he doesn't do when that is like an integral part of, that very system, or that very system of socialism. Why does one need, right? Like, if you were to say that straight up, right? People could logically say, okay, wait a second, let me take that. Let's go look over here. Yeah, that's fact. He does not do those things. That's it. Why are we living in a world where I need to perfectly craft an argument to...
because the people that are watching him want to do the same. He's a role model, right? People want to feel the same way. They also want to be part of the social group. So when you're making arguments against Hasan...
But we're not arguing. But we're not arguing opinion. We're arguing a factual thing, right?
No. It's not a factual thing at all. No one cares about that. You're arguing identities, and you're arguing over like how people feel about themselves. That's really what you're fighting over at the end of the day. And if there's a bunch of people that follow Hasan that see him as a role model and they want to be like him, well, if you're telling me that to be like him, I've got to do like all these super fucking lame things to make myself like a real socialist or whatever. Nobody wants to actually do all that shit. That's cringe. People want to just be able to like have like the Che Guevara poster, and to be able to tweet certain things and get like all the credit of being a socialist without having to actually do like the real kind of shitty gritty work for it,
Yeah, I understand that part, but like I said, my disconnect lies in I'm not necessarily, people can be whatever they think they are, right? They can identify as whatever they'd like, but at the end of the day, there is an objectivity to what you are and what you aren't when it comes to like there is a parameter, right? If you're a socialist, well, if you're a socialist and you believe in socialism, right, there has to be a
but the question is
certain set of parameters.
The question is, what are you? What do you want to be? People don't want to be a socialist any more than they don't want to be not racist. What they want is the perception of being a socialist. They want the perception of being not racist.
Yeah, but that's an issue, is it not?
Yeah, of course it is. I think it's fucking
that's
horrible.
That's why we don't see any change.
But that's what you're fighting against. Remember, people don't. If you want to be a socialist, it's pretty easy to look up, especially if you're a fucking wealthy white kid online, to look up what it is you could be and what it is you want to be. Like it's pretty easy to like understand like what exactly you need to do. But people don't want to be the thing. They just want to get the credit for having the perception of being the thing.
So what you're telling me is my mistake is looking at it in that black and white way, where what you're saying is they were arguing identity, what they feel like they are, or what they want to identify as, or what groups they want to be, or whatever the fuck, right?
Yeah.
And what I'm sitting here and saying is, okay, well, your actions don't match up with what you say you want to be, which to me, there was no argument to be had. There's nothing to dive deep into. You see that. So for me, a disconnect is how can people not just say, okay, you know what? This is true, right? But if you want to identify as that, that's fine. But you're not it, right? So like my disconnect is, I can't understand or fathom how that isn't enough.
How what
right?
is
Like,
well, because people are going to fight you on the fact of the matter because you're threatening their identities. They don't want to accept that they're not really socialists, right? So of course they're going to fight you on it.
yeah, but it's fact versus so they're using opinions and non-factual arguments to argue that they are something when there is an objective.
But is
thing that
it
they're not
objective
doing.
though? They're going to fight over like what does it actually mean to be a socialist? Maybe you don't have to do these things. They're going to fight you. Have you ever heard of the no true Scotsman fallacy?
I have not. No.
So let's say that I say all Persians are gay, and you're like,
Right.
well, that's not true. Look at this guy. He's Persian. He's not gay. Like, that's not a real Persian. It's like, what? Okay. So they say like they say all of the categories this type of thing, but then when you point to things that are in that category that aren't that thing, they go, oh, well, that's not part of the category. People will do this all the time with like
that is the scariest world to live in. I'm confused. Nothing will ever get done. Like we're all living in a fucking fantasy then.
Well, that's society, bro. We all live and die based on the perceptions that people around us have, right? If 20 people in a room think you're an asshole, even if you're not an asshole, you might as well be an asshole, right? Because you're going to get all the same social validation and punishments based on the people's perceptions around you. But we're a social creature. We live and die by the perceptions of people around us, right? Unless you're like in a strict competitive environment where it's like a...
Do you know how fucking sad that is?
Well, that's literally how society works. Yeah, it sucks, but that's...
Well, do you understand that society is a self-perpetuating, self-sabotaging fucking social system that is going to lead us to our own downfalls if that's how it operates?
Possibly,
it's literally
yeah.
going to lead to our own downfalls. No change will come of it. If perception's all that matters, no change will ever come of anything. The very people who are complaining about the system itself are the jailers of their own cells if this is how it operates.
Yeah, but that's the problem, right? Let's say that you are a socialist and you're really big on socialism and you want to do these things and your content creator is Hasan. Well, that's cool. Like, how does my favorite socialist live his life? He buys $250,000 cars, $3 million mansions, and takes $10,000 private flights to Burning Man, right? That's your big, like, socialist representative. So, I mean, like, yeah, I mean, but he, you know, he's living and dying on the aesthetic of being a socialist. So that's the guy that you got, and that's what he gets the credit for. And yeah, I mean, I agree. At the end of the day, it's probably harmful to those movements because you don't have like a Che Guevara like figure, right? To kind of like model yourself after. You just have basically like a hardcore consumerist capitalist that's like living their best capitalist life. So I mean, I would say it's damaging those movements, but I mean, I don't care. I'm not a socialist. I don't like those movements, so fuck them. It's good. Technically, it's good for me if people like Hasan are the representatives of those movements because they don't have much longevity.
Yeah, true. Damn. I have never even, I mean, I guess that's my own closed-mindedness and ignorance to not even understand that you know, that what you just explained exists. That's just wild to me. Like, I guess I come from a time, I guess this sounds like wild to me, but I come from a time where, like, if you say you're something, like, you're about it.
Nah,
fully.
I think we've all society's always done this shit. It's very human. Human's gonna human, you know, as a good old friend used to say. It's a pretty human thing to try to.
Oh, Nietzsche, yeah, of course, human, all too human.
Sure.
That's Nietzsche, right? That is Nietzsche.
I was thinking of a YouTube philosopher, but close enough.
Oh, no. Well, I think Nietzsche has a book, right? Human, all too human.
I have no idea. I don't read. I read Wikipedia, okay? If you give me a Wikipedia article on it, I'll believe in you.
We used to call them posers train. That's facts. I guess that's my biggest disconnect. Like, I didn't realize I needed a full fucking fledged, perfectly articulated, you know, argument to show you say you're this, yet you don't do this, that makes you this. And then you're telling me it has nothing to do with that. It has to do with what people believe they are and the perception of coming off to look that they're that. Like, that, do you know what? Like, that is, like, that, I mean, I guess this is an issue I need to work with on my own because I guess this is my weakness, but that almost, that's a scary fucking world. Like, what the fuck is ever going to get done if that's all we do? If all we care about is the perception of, if all we care about is how we look to others, right? That's wild. That's wild to me. Like, I mean, that itself is contradictory to saying that you're that. If all you care about is looking like it and not being it, then to me, that parameter, it's that itself is missing the parameter of thinking that you're it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, if all you care about is looking like it without doing it, And you're telling me that society is, I guess you're not saying they're conscious of it, right? You're saying that's what you're saying, right? Some people aren't aware or conscious of that this is going on. They truly believe they are it.
Yeah, I think, or they find a way to like make it work in their brain, kind of. I think
Rationalize it. Okay, that makes sense. Jesus, wow. So then, what you're saying is the only way this ever changes is if you can convince the delusional to wake the fuck up. So you would need someone like you to argue. That's just that simple.
Doesn't have to be me, but yeah, you just gotta.
Well, and no, anyone that's well versed in all those tactics and bullshit. Like, how the fuck do you battle someone that gish gallops? Do you just make sure that, is it like what Piers Morgan did that one time versus Tate, where he kept telling him to answer the question? Is that how you battle that? Is that how you counter that? You stay on the question and you look for a yes or no answer?
Well, I mean, if you're talking about navigating live conversations, that's a whole other topic of like, that's just a whole separate skill set you have to develop.
Interesting. Jesus, I
mean, people do this shit all the time, right? When people say they're a fan of a band, a lot of the times they don't really care about being a fan of the band. They're trying to collect the credit for
they're bandwagoning.
Exactly. Literally, right? That's why, like, how many times, like, I don't know if people still do this, but people used to wear, like, band t-shirts and shit. And sometimes when, like, certain fans of that group would pop up, they'd ask us, like, yo, give me, like, 2 albums from this guy. Or do you know anything besides, like, their, like, #1 hit single? People will test people on it because they don't know if you actually are fans of that thing or if you're just trying to collect credit for being the fan of that thing, right?
Yeah, but here's the difference. Now, obviously, this is something that I may be generalizing, but, or I might be assuming, but it seems to me from my experience, I truly believe that Hasan believes he's doing a service, that he believes like this is enough to define him as a socialist.
No,
do you understand? Like,
Shad, that would be crazy. It's possible, but like, dude, even I feel guilty. Like, I've done a few like real world action things with my money, but even I feel kind of guilty for as much money as I fucking make. Like, there's probably a million things more that I could be doing in service of my beliefs. There's no way Hasan has to feel like he's doing enough. That would be wild to me.
Then let me ask you this: if he doesn't truly believe he is what he says he is, then what's with all the co-ops with, if he, like, for the dog shelter?
He doesn't do any
right?
co-ops. He doesn't have any co-ops. That's bullshit.
No, by co-op I meant like the getting in front of the camera.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, like getting in front of the camera, right, for the dog thing, right, where he like waved the fee, right? He literally stepped into the camera and they set up like a little 5-minute little window and he's like, I did this, guys, right? Like, what is that? If you don't truly believe you're right, like,
well, he's virtue signaling, right? He's trying to collect points for like being the good guy that's donating money, right? That's good. You look good, right? I donated for fucking puppies, right?
Huh.
But I mean, like, if you really think about it, that's probably like one of the most vain things in the fucking world to like spend your money on, is like a fucking bougie dog adoption shelter place, right?
So you believe he's aware of what he's doing?
Maybe to some extent, I guess. But I don't think he's like, I don't think it's like some super malicious thing. He probably, like I said, it's just like following trends.
I think you're giving too much credit. I don't think he's aware. I think he truly believes he's a socialist and what he does is enough. Or maybe there's a point where he was what you say, but now through that rationalization, right? Those loopholes of, the gish galloping between worker union, this and this and that, and ignoring the, pretty much cherry picking parts of socialism that are easy to follow, right? That don't require giving money or don't require distributing a percentage of wealth or don't
doing
require
mutual aid, or actually like putting you actually asked him something on like, what if you do like a particular thing? He's like, bro, I'd have to put like time, and like he didn't say it in as many words, but he basically said that like I would have to put so much time and energy into that, and I'm not good at that. He's basically saying like all I can do is like throw a few $1,000s at things every now and then to keep people off my back, right? And again, at the end of the day, it's like an inconsequential amount of money. There's like 2 days of ad revenue, maybe. Like he's not even like really donating that much. Yeah.
Well, it's just wild to me that like, for example, that thing I brought up. I think I said this out loud. I said he's cherry picking, what parts of socialism to follow based on what seems to be convenient to his bank account, right? Like, or what seems to be convenient to the parts of it don't require him touching his bank account. And then he went on to say I'm pocket watching. Isn't that your entire fucking political stance? The pocket watch.
Well,
the
before he
fucking
got
rich?
really rich, he did a lot of pocket watching, but now he doesn't as much.
What I'm
But I think there was a
That's
video.
what-
Was it Nicolol or somebody else where he watched a video of somebody like going through and they bought like $1 million house or whatever? And he's like, "Who needs this much house?" I remember. I distinctly remember watching a video like that. But obviously, he doesn't say shit like that anymore now that he's got like his massive mansion. Or you can see how he tries to sidestep. Like people ask him like, "Why did you buy such an expensive house in West Hollywood?" He's like, "Well, I needed a place for my mom to live." And it's like, really, bro? That's why you live in WeHo with your yeah. But I mean, like, it's it is what it is.
What's wild to me is like what I told him in the beginning of the conversation makes the most sense in my opinion. Like all he has to do is make one little change to what he claims to be, and he would still get the same fucking love. He would still get the same because it's a good stance to be in. It's not as extreme, but it's a logical stance to be in. Just to be a capitalist that believes.
No,
Right?
but then he gets none of the virtue points. Why would he want to be a capitalist? It's like the worst.
Yeah,
thing in
but
the
be a
world to those
capitalist
guys.
and then work. Operate in a way where you're working
he's-
with capitalist systems in
No, no.
conjunction with socialist
People
systems.
that do that to these guys are the worst people. They're even worse than the fascists, right?
Really?
Yeah, because an example of that is MrBast. People fucking hate MrBast online right now, or the socialist people do, because he donates to charity, right? People fucking hate Bill Gates, and he's doing exactly what you just suggested. He's using his billions of dollars to fund like fucking vaccines and health initiatives and malaria initiatives and shit all across the world, especially in Africa and poor countries where he's not going to be selling computers or making money. So I mean,
so
like,
let me-
people
so let me
hate
a-
these types of people. They hate these
So-
capitalists almost more than anything.
So let me ask you this: Have those people that hate these people, have they ever looked at their own leaders and asked what the fuck they're doing?
No, I don't know how. I'd have to be more involved in these communities. I don't know how, but
It-
somehow
it-
like
it-
they all
it just
escape
makes-
like any kind
Yeah,
of
they all
like,
escape it.
yeah.
It makes no sense to me.
I super don't know. I don't know.
That's my biggest disconnect. The reason I'm comfortable with that conversation is because I kind of view the world differently. Like I think I can, view the world in a non-zero, in a non-1 and 0 way, and I can view the world in the 1 and 0 way. And in that conversation, when I look at the ones and zeros, aside from debate tactics or how to control conversation, whatever you just said earlier regarding how to counter gish galloping, this and that, putting that aside, seeing it in a 1 and 0 way, like the things that I brought up, in my eyes, like those are things that people should, oh, wait a second, that makes sense, right? But it's not the case. Like what you just said, it really fucks with me so heavily. It's right in front of people's eyes, yet somehow they've trained themselves or they've been conditioned over the years not to see it. So like the fact that it even has to be argued is wild to me. And to me, that's a big fucking issue in today's society. We're not going to get anywhere. Like, in my opinion, we're more socially backwards than we are fucking in any other fucking category. It's fucking wild, bro.
I mean, like again, like you get older and you notice different problems in society, and you think they're novel, you think they're new, you think they've never happened before. But the reality is, like, we've always been like this. Like, it's pretty human, I think.
Yeah, but that excuse to me is good for, mid-level to like entry-level political leaders. But the biggest ones, the largest ones, like,
Oh
if
no,
they're
I agree. You've
if
seen
they're
like that.
hypocrites, we're fucked.
Yeah, you've seen like that
Right?
comic, right? The one.
Oh yeah. I know what you're talking about the MrBast and the Hasan one. That comic or not?
It's
that
the
meme?
one where there's a guy who's like, "Oh, you're being critical of the system, yet you live as part of the fuck. What am I thinking of? You criticize capitalism like you're a part of it or whatever. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's like the one with the poor slave working outside, and there's a guy in the castle like making fun of him. You don't know what I'm talking about.
Oh, I don't know.
This is like a comic that like every fucking socialist online uses to escape all responsibility. But they basically use this argument of like, there's a broader argument that is summarized with the sentence, there is no ethical consumption under capitalism. And basically the idea, one of the broad ideas is that like if you live in a capitalist system, especially if you're like a working poor kind of person, there's not really much you can do to fight against it. Like you're kind of a slave to your means around you. And people will use this to let like people like Hasan basically escape all criticism. When they say things like, oh, socialism is when no shirt. Oh, socialism is when no car. Oh, what they're really doing is they're trying to say like, I'm basically just like a working class like American. Like I'm doing what I can, but like, can you really expect me to be able to fight against all of capitalism? And the reality is, a multimillionaire at 27 years old, yeah, you can. but they try to present themselves as like an ordinary worker to escape that criticism. It's like when Hasan like fuck, what did he say? What was the one line where somebody called him out for like all of his spending and he's like, I live like an ordinary life, or what did he say? What was the quote? It was fucking hilarious. Fuck.
He said something about like he lives bare minimum life.
It was like the funniest fucking. Oh, he said a basic necessities budget. He said
basic necessities. Yeah, that's what it was, which is ridiculous.
And it's like that's one of those comments where I'm like, okay, holy shit! Like, what is this guy's fans thinking when they see him say that? Like, there's got to be like that's got to ping off the inside of their skulls where they're like, oh, Hasan, listen, I agree with you, but god damn, that's a really rough statement to make. I don't know. I'm not sure. Or maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's like, yeah, fuck it. You know, there is no ethical consumption under capitalism. He's right.
I just can't believe when I brought up there's so many parts I brought up that went over everyone's heads. Like that's why I'm comfortable with it, because you don't believe the time will tell thing will sit, and that's fine, right? We can agree to disagree there, and you know, I can maybe concede and say you're probably right. But the small piece of hope in me is kind of clinging on to that, thinking, okay, you know what? Maybe one day people will wake up and revisit this and say, wait a second here, these make sense, but or this makes sense. But that one part, fuck, I just lost my train of thought when I went on that. What was it? Give me a sec. Let's see.
Oh yeah, there was a time when Hasan said that he was closer to his audience than he is to Grimes when she was at that one event. Yeah, and then 3 weeks later he had her on his stream. Bro, that shit's just funny to me at this point. I don't know. I think it's pretty funny, but Jesus.
Of course, it's fucking everywhere. It's just wild. What was I gonna say? Fuck, it was actually
profound.
Oh, the part where I brought up, and I said it clearly. I'm like, listen, I don't doubt that you give a piece of your podcast, you know, to the editors or whatever the hell he said. But what about your main income source, right? It's easy to give something that's not making very much, but when you have your main income source that's bringing in, you know, $5-6+ million a year, and no one's getting anything from that, like that. When I made that clear, I'm just surprised that went over everyone's heads. Like, I don't know, like, are people dumb? Do they make excuses because they need, you know, someone that they've already convinced themselves is the, you know, good guy or the messiah or whatever the fuck they've convinced themselves? Like, is this why they're brainwashed to like just that obvious? Like, it's obvious. It's right in front of the. It's mind-boggling to me, Destiny. Do you understand? Like, giving away a piece of a podcast that's not netting very much, at least relative to your main income source, your main stream, your main income stream, and not giving any of that away. Like, shouldn't that be a clear fucking indicator? Like, wait a second here.
Yeah, but remember, like, again, you're looking to watch a guy that makes you feel good about yourself that already agrees with you. That's people. It's like comfort watching, right? That's generally what happens. I mean, even my audience probably does that to some extent. Right? I think I have relatively unique views on things, but they probably end up copying most of my views, and then they like watching me because I'm sure people watch me for a variety of reasons. Probably a lot of people that watch me because I fight against a lot of people, and it feels good to like, oh, this is my guy that fights against people I don't like. So I'm probably watching.
But you realize no change will ever come if this is kind of the.
Yeah, it's a hard one. I understand. Yeah, it's difficult. But there's real life examples of like change not coming because of these types of attitudes. Black Lives Matter was a good example. We need to push for like real systemic change that's going to make differences in people's lives. But instead it ended up being like a big virtue signal about like, no, all cops are bastards. Like, okay, well, that doesn't get us anywhere. Defund the police. Well, that didn't work out very well, right? You just end up with a bunch of people virtue signaling and then nothing actually gets done. But I mean, like, that's kind of, yeah, it happens. It sucks, but it, you know, it is what it is.
So what you're saying ultimately is we live in a world where performance is all that matters. Like a performative action. That's it.
Kind of.
Not real action, performative action. That's all that matters.
Yeah, the performance is really important. So unless you get people to expose people or fight against the fake performances, that's all you can really do.
It's not even about exposing. Like, it's literally, no, it's, listen, I truly believe, here's the start to it, okay?
Okay.
If we can baseline some sort of bare minimum level of education, right? Because I would argue, a lot of people, they look at education, why do I have to take these classes? I can't apply any of these things I learn, outside of school. But it's like, what they don't realize is these classes and that curriculum in college, it hones your ability to critically think. It hones that skill. If everyone possessed the ability to critically think, everybody, right? Logic and reason would take over, and people would begin to see, and from that, the right people would get into positions of power, and from that chain reaction starts to real change happening. Until then, we have people who are posers getting into office, right? And they talk about the change, but they're not about the change. Therefore, change will never be a result of them being in power. Only until people have that baseline capability of being able to critically think, only then will the correct people get into the positions of power that will actually lead to change. Until then, it's about who looks the best and who sounds the best, not who does it the best. Do you understand?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but I mean, like, that's the way of the world. This is something I've been fighting against for a long time. Is that like?
So how the fuck do we ever advance?
You've got to look the best. If you're doing the best actions, you need to dress them up. You need to make them look good. It's not enough to just be the best. You've got to look the best too.
But would you agree that most of the time, and I guess I'm generalizing once again, and I shouldn't do this, my therapist always tells me, but wouldn't you agree most of the time the people who look the best and sound the best are not the fucking best?
Sometimes, yeah. But I mean, you got to dress your shit up better. That's all we can really do.
Jesus. So what you're saying is we're fucked right now until we get to a point of, where our society's more baselined in the logic and reason category. We're fucked.
Yeah, but humans, logic and reason are not very human properties, right? Like reasoning out things these are very like, or maybe those are the most human things, but we're very like animalistic people. We're driven like very emotionally. We're driven by like stories and narratives and all that, not by like facts and logic. That's like a very queer thing for the human mind. You've got to learn that. It's very difficult. So I mean, like, but again, it's not abnormal. This is how we've always been. Like, it's not like we've ever been in a society where everybody is like fucking, like Aristotle or Plato. It's like, oh yeah, everybody here is like a master fucking, logistician or some shit. Like, this is how it works, right?
I'll take it one step further. What I'm saying, I believe to be true, in regards to like, in any sort of hopes for a future, or any sort of advancement for, the human civilization, is going to result from baselining that, the basic logics and reasons required to see the truth. But I feel like most of the leaders in power right now don't want that to be the case. They want the people to stay stupid. They want the very people that people are voting in to be their leaders, to take them away from their misery and their miserable lives and their jailing by quote unquote capitalism, are the very people that need to keep those people below them. Do you understand? They're voting in the very people who they think are going to take them out, but secretly those people need to keep them down because that's their power.
I don't think it's that the politicians like need to keep them down or anything like that. I think it's just like people vote in people that like synergize well with them and they feel like they represent their interests. And like
if there was ever a point where
it's all
they're
like self-perpetuating.
Yeah, but if there was ever a point where they're as smart, they wouldn't have as much power over them.
Yeah, but then just like different politicians that appeal to that would be the ones that would be elected, right? In some cases, I'm sure there are a lot of times when leaders wish people were smarter. Like if you've got a president, like let's say you've got a president and like gas prices are falling, right? You're happy that people are dumb and they're giving you credit for it because the president doesn't really affect gas prices, not that much, right? But then let's say there's times where gas prices are going up a lot, or inflation is happening because of worldwide events. In that case, you probably wish your voting population was way smarter. Like, guys, this is out of my control. I can't do anything about this. Don't blame me. So it just depends on
Yeah, but the problem is at that point they're once again I don't know if cherry picking is the right word here, but they're cherry picking what categories they want the voter to be smart in, right? Because in other categories they manipulate that stupidity themselves. So until there's somebody,
but you have to manipulate the stupidity, right? Otherwise, otherwise you'll never get elected. And then what does that say about the political movement?
Yeah, but that's the very issue. That entire system is fucking designed for us to never advance the points that we need to get to a place where we can actually thrive. Everyone can thrive. It's just like, that's the issue. Do you understand?
Of course I understand. I understand what you're saying.
What you just explained is Oh man.
That's,
The entire thing you just explained is contradictory to any sort of an advancement as the human or for the human species. Like, it's wild to me that no one sees that. Like,
I mean,
people
I
think
think
I'm
a
like
lot of people
delusional
see
and
it, and people
schizo.
get frustrated with it. But I mean, it's again, it's just that's a story of human history.
Yeah, but the power is in their hands. Like, oh man, it's just wild. Like, even when one person says, you know what, fuck it, like, I see it, I'm frustrated, I can't do anything. Like, that's an issue. How many others are thinking that way? And from that, as a result, how many wrong leaders are getting put into power? I don't know.
Yeah, that's life. It's a rough one.
So what do you think the solution is? Obviously, my solution was baselining education, you know, encouraging it, getting those, you know, critical thinking skills, you know, for everybody.
I think a basic psych class and a basic philosophy class, I think should be mandated in most schools. Actually,
I agree.
I feel like it would help critical thinking a little bit.
It
I
would
don't know if that
solve
would,
so
like,
many
fix.
issues.
I don't know if it would solve all of our issues. It'd be a nice start.
It would
but-
solve so many. Like it wouldn't be overnight. It wouldn't be in 10 years, 20 years, but like in 100 years from now, people will start opening their fucking eyes. Oh, man, oh man, oh man. It's just wild to me. What a world.